King Kong ain't got shit on us. Training Day and season 3 of Haven't Seen It coming up next. Haven't Seen It with Tim Sestito and Tommy Tevenet. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Thank you all so much for listening today. Happy New Year's to all of you. I am excited to bring the podcast back for a third season with my forever co-host, Tommy Tevenet. Tommy,
What up?
how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Just watched a
How
dope movie.
Yeah, we just watched a pretty cool movie. I know we were kind of floating around stuff to do in January, but
Mm.
Tommy, explain to me the conversation we had probably a year ago at this point with your relationship to Denzel Washington.
Yeah, so like I have almost no relation with Denzel Washington. I mean, like no nothing against him. I don't hate the guy or anything, but I was looking through his filmography right before we started when I was in the middle of watching a movie, and I'm pretty sure this is only my third movie of his I've seen.
Wow.
Yeah, so only three
Like,
movies.
what are the other
And
two?
and and to be honest, one of them is respected. One is a good movie, I think. Unstoppable. That was a
Okay,
great
yeah,
movie. Yeah,
we watched that together. That's a good one with Tony
yeah, that's
Scott.
a really solid movie. And then the other one for me was the remake of The Magnificent Seven.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So less defensible right there.
Slightly less defensible on this one. Yeah, this feels like your first true Denzel performance.
Mm.
You got Man on Fire, American Gangster, and even if you want to go more lighthearted, like I love him and Remember the Titans. The guy
Mm.
is just such an icon. So we'll
We
dive
we
deep.
could
We
we could
could
do a
do
whole
Denzel
Denzel
month.
month.
We could do
Yeah.
Denzel month. I'm down to pivot, although I do kind of want to do Heat, and it's on Netflix right now, so that does help.
Well, this is on Netflix too, which
I know. It
yeah.
also helps.
Corporate synergy.
Corporate synergy. Jack Donaghy would be proud. So Tommy, to kick off the new year, as always, give me some of the movies you watched throughout the holiday season, maybe one in special that stood out to you.
So I guess recently, I watched some bar in New Haven did a screening of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, the 1960s movie, with Joan Crawford and Betty Davis. And I'm usually one that I've said this before on the pod. I don't really like sometimes like older movies because like the it's just static acting or static like filmography. They're still learning the art
I
form
wouldn't
as
call the
much.
acting static in a lot of older movies. I would call it like the filmography because
That
and
this
it's
this
not really a
no.
60s problem, but like in the 40s and stuff, that camera is planted.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. The acting sometimes is a little like too theatrical, obviously, back in the day, I feel like for me. But this movie was incredible. I'd never seen it before. It was just amazing to see two like Titans in their later years just go at each other. You can feel the animosity on screen. It's a movie that's notorious for the two stars hating each other on set, and you can feel it. And just the cinematography was amazing. All the different like camera angles and directing in general just wowed me. So definitely recommend that. Whatever happened to Baby Jane, crazy movie.
All right. All right, cool. I guess I should save Ferrari for our Heat episode because I did see Ferrari in theaters
Yeah,
with my dad. So I'll
nice. That's
say
that's a dad movie.
it's I went to the theater. It was like a Thursday at 7:30. I was pleasantly surprised, like looking up tickets like 5 minutes beforehand. Like not like half an hour beforehand. I'm like, oh, this is like three-quarters full. Cool. All
Yeah,
right, awesome. I was one of five people 30 or under in that movie theater. And
yeah,
I don't know if there was a big gap between 30 and 60 in that movie
yeah,
theater.
yeah.
But that it's that those driving movies definitely get dad out of the house, go to the theater. I mean, I'm just gonna go into Ferrari because I
Yeah,
went down this tirade.
yeah.
Ferrari was good, not great.
Mhm.
I mean, Adam Driver is fantastic. I really like how he was portrayed. I think for these CEO kind of characters, like people don't recognize, like if you even if you think of like a Zuckerberg, your modern equivalent, right? Like these guys have a ruthlessness and a dedication to their craft
Mm.
that like I think people don't always put two and two together that that's a part of their personas. And I
Yeah.
think he Driver really captures that power. And maybe it's something I would need to see on a rewatch. The first hour, not that it was bad, but
Just
it
dragged a little
was
bit.
it was
I don't know.
dragging.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen
It
it.
wasn't it was dragging, and I mean it's a movie called Ferrari. Like I just want to see some sweet Ferraris go vroom. And they
You
went
want
for
to see
the
Gran Turismo based on a true story.
yeah, I literally was like, I just want to go play Forza after I saw this movie. And you know what? Second half delivers on the vroom vroom. They go fast, things
Cars go fast.
happen. It's really a drama about this specific time in his life when the factory is on financial edge and his son that he had with his mistress gets discovered by his actual wife. So it's a whole web of you know, whole
Of
little web
cars.
in his personal things surrounded by cars. Yeah. And like it just wasn't compelling enough drama for me. Like it, the whole naming thing, or it wasn't at least portrayed that way to me in like the stakes just weren't high enough for me, you know?
Yeah. It's a
Uh
little brutal.
no, no, well, there was a certain part, but we'll get to that. And it has its moments, but it's all a little disjointed too, like the different dramas that happen, and then there's a big long car race and something happens there that's big for the company. But it's almost
I
like documenting like this like strange period in his life, like a very limited look into it, which I did
mm.
appreciate more so compared to like Napoleon, which tried to cover the whole shebang.
Well, I don't know. Something in biopics that just kind of is annoying sometimes, where it's just like they go through every single nook and cranny of the fucking artist, where
Yeah,
it's
and
just
then
like
you don't
that becomes
really
formulaic. You get the walk hard version, which essentially that has killed it for me. Instead, I think biopics are more interesting nowadays when it just focuses on like
like a and
one
it
one
was
snippet of their life.
it was cool. I think I just think personally that drama just it didn't get through to me the way it did. Maybe it was like the connection between the son. It was about like him having his mother's name as his last name or having Ferrari as his last name. Like that was like the stakes of the drama. And like I don't know, we saw the kid
You
for
just
five
didn't
minutes.
care.
He wanted an autograph. Like it wasn't like there's one scene of them really interacting. It was good. Like I enjoyed it. I would say go see it in a theater. Like the racing's really cool. I just think it's a little disjointed. It's not Michael Mann at his best, but it's a fun movie overall. And speaking of a fun movie, it's a interesting way to put it. This is
Great transition.
great transition. This is Training Day.
I'm the police. King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
The critics are raving about America's #1 movie, Training Day. Time magazine says Denzel Washington gives a hot-wired performance. Rolling Stone calls Training Day knockout action entertainment. Denzel Washington is flat-out great. The performance of the year, says the Wall Street Journal. The New York Times guarantees him an Oscar nomination. This is a great film. Training Day, rated R, now playing.
I did like the one part of that trailer of Denzel's guaranteed an Oscar.
Yeah, guaranteed an Oscar nomination. They never guarantee you an Oscar, but they guarantee you a nomination. So for those who don't know, Training Day is a 2001 American crime thriller filmed and directed by Antoine Fuqua, and it follows Denzel Washington as Alonzo Harris and Ethan Hawke as Jay Coy, two LAPD narcotic officers over a 24-hour period in the gang-ridden neighborhoods of Westlake, Echo Park, in South Central Los Angeles. Um, Ethan Hawke is Jay Coy. He's the rookie, new to the force, and Alonzo Harris is the veteran. And I know that there's some truth behind this movie in terms of what was actually happening with the LAPD. But first, Tommy, and as we prefaced earlier, this is like I feel like your first like true Denzel
I've really
performance,
popped my Denzel cherry right here.
carrying the film kind of performance.
Yeah,
And I mean that is no
he
disrespect to Ethan Hawke because he was also great in this, but this is a Denzel vehicle.
this is yeah, you can see why Denzel is obviously known as like the greatest actor of all time in this. He's just fucking firing all cylinders. This is a movie that like well, I've never seen. I've had like pop culture osmosis of this because of the fucking Wayne Brady sketch on Dave Chappelle, the Chappelle show.
Yeah.
So when I'm watching this movie, when I see like the you just smoke PCP, I'm expecting literally just like Wayne Brady saying like angel dust, motherfucker. But still, despite the parody, it still that seems like oh shit, Jesus Christ. Um, so the reason why we're covering this movie this week is because David Ayer's coming out with The Beekeeper this weekend. And he directed it. He wrote this movie. Tim, do you have any excitement whatsoever for The Beekeeper? You ready to keep some bees?
Um, I this is the first I'm hearing of The Beekeeper, David Ayers.
Yeah, The Beekeeper. It's the movie of fucking Jason Statham, where he's a beekeeper and he just fucks
Oh,
people up.
miss, you know, anything Jason Statham is in is usually like a high mark of quality. And any movie that comes out in January, you know, Hollywood never releases their garbage in January. That's not when they do it. They only release quality films in January. Fun fact.
I mean, occasionally it does happen, like a good movie comes out in January.
Name I get outside of The Beekeeper, name one.
What, like a good movie that got released in January?
January. No, it's a month of fuck yous.
Scream 5, I thought was good. Best
That's
movies released in January. I can
yeah,
look this up right
it's
now.
more we don't need to do that. But uh so we're doing this because David Ayer directed The Beekeeper and wrote Training Day. That was a connection I just heard of for the first time. Tommy, I love your research methods. There's a method behind the madness, and you don't explain it to us. Um, I feel like we've covered 80s, 70, 80 some odd movies at this point.
Mhm.
I feel like this is one of the top examples of like a character's persona like dragging you into his perception of reality, like how
Mhm.
he perceives his line in narcotics. Because he's a dirty cop. That's what he
I
is. He runs in the streets. He helps people get promoted within 18 months. But he gets his cuts. He gets his hands dirty. He has no problem riding that on the other side of the line. Where Ethan Hawke, who's playing Jake, is the new rookie, and he's a little bit more by the book.
mhm.
And we're following him learn from Denzel, like how to be a part of this, and watching him face the question of like what his morals are and where is the line of those morals versus like getting a promotion. That's kind of the tension that cuts between the movie
Mhm.
throughout.
I think that one of the things in the narrative structure of this movie that makes it really work well is the fact that it just takes place over 24 hours
Oh
because it
yeah.
removes a lot of the fat. Like we don't need the scene of him coming back from like a day in the force and his like wife being all concerned, being like, "Oh, like honey, you seem stressed. What's going on?" or something like that. Like we don't need like
I gotta weigh this out. Oh my God.
it's like you should take him down or something like that. We don't need like because we don't need the character to have someone to bounce off like, hey, this is the stressful thing that's happening to me.
Yeah. Well,
Because then that would make basically just like break the tension a little bit, make it a little bit more. Whereas this is just like up there as now that I've seen it, I think it's like one of the better One Crazy Night movies or One Crazy Day.
yeah, like a
Like this
24 hour, like
keeps
a
spiraling.
continuous story versus something that takes over place over the course of multiple days, weeks, months. And
And the character's on PCP for a little bit of it.
yeah, and he's on PCP. Yeah. And the movie does that right away. It kind of throws you into like the questionable ethics of Denzel as of Alonzo.
Oh wow,
When he's
that's
like, you couldn't say no to a drug dealer on the streets. Like he's like, get out of my car. He like stops traffic, puts a gun to his head. He smokes the pipe, and he's like, hey, it's a free country. No, nobody forced you to do it. It's like, wow, you gaslighting motherfucker. I really think the interesting thing though, because like I was doing like reading on this, and it was a lot of it was on like the morals of Jake and what his ethic lines, because he ultimately betrays Alonzo, who owes these Russians like $1 million. So he set up a sting during this day to retrieve that money. And like people were like, well, it was that ethical line. And I was like, it wasn't the ethical line. It was ditching him in like this random gangbanger's house, and they put him in the tub with a shotgun to his head, and they're ready to blow his brains out until they find their niece's wallet, who he saved earlier in the day. I'm like, he felt betrayed. Like I don't think. I think if that situation doesn't happen, Alonzo gets on free. Like, right? Like, I don't think there's this like moral scrupulation between the characters as it's like been presented to the audience, like through interviews and stuff like that. I felt like no, he was kind of like game because he wanted to make detective. He wanted to move his career along.
Mm.
Um, and was
Yeah,
and like
it's
like it was like soaking it in. Like we almost didn't know what he was going to do.
yeah,
Up to that
exactly. It
point.
brings you into just like a wild card moment where it's like you don't know if we're going from moment to moment to moment. I do want to mention out real quick, just a little. I typed in how long does a PCP high last to figure out how long it's last over the movie, and Google just came up with help is available. Speak of someone today. So that's where my life's at right now.
Let's not bring your search history into this, Tommy. That's just better for everybody.
Yeah, but anyways, no, but you know, the Denzel being just such a wild card, the fact that like immediately he goes from 0 to 100. Like it's not like a gradual descent. Sometimes like these movies can be. Like if this movie was taking over the course of like a month or something like that, it would be like you'd be like a 30 minutes of him just being a nice normal cop or something like that.
Yeah.
And this,
Well, you get this sense immediately,
Mhm.
starting this movie off, that Alonzo, he's not by the book. And he
Yeah,
kind of is telling you that, and that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
And then like the first real quote unquote thing is when he makes him smoke crack.
Mhm.
Um, and doesn't help him out when he's fighting off those crackheads who are trying to rape that girl. Right? And
Mhm.
just kind of like stands and watches. But you realize he does things differently. But this is a whole different department. Like he's not wearing the cop uniform. He's there to do research and um bust crimes. So like you're kind of thinking, okay, like nothing really too crazy. And it doesn't really get super crazy until the three wise men scene when they go and they meet the wise men of the LAPD, like the you know the
I'd say it gets a little bit crazy before that, but I
well,
think
it
it's
gets
just like
crazy, but I'm talking about in terms of like I don't think it gets crazy in terms of like, oh, this is a really dirty cop
Mhm.
until the money comes out.
Mhm.
Like there's the scene with Snoop Dogg in the wheelchair and they chase him down and make him throw up the crack rocks and get the name Sandman uh as a way to of like who's distributing the things. Like
so
it's
there is
hard.
something
It's
about this.
riding earlier on. It's just riding that line, right? It's
Yeah.
like riding that line, but you're like, his ethics seem to be in a good way. Like there's the drug dealer that he has the relationship with. You're like, okay, like he throws him one for some information, right? It kind of goes along that line. Eh, But then once that three wise men, you hear about his situation in Las Vegas with the Russians, that's when you realize, oh, no, he's on an entirely different street altogether.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it's just like if you're Ethan Hawke, at what point do you realize like shit? Like I'm the fucking.
When you smoke crack,
Yeah, I think that's probably the first indication. I mean, maybe a little bit before that, where he's like fucking just tells fucking was it before or after he goes inside the kid's house?
the
And
first time or the second time?
first time when he gets the search warrant.
Oh, when they go in the search warrant in the lady's house and he takes the 40,000 from Sandman, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And he's holding the thing like all of them seem to be a means to do the job that they need to do, like getting the drugs off the street, right? Like I think
Mhm.
it's all in his perception. It's like, damn, they really play by different rules here. But
Mhm.
Alonzo, and it's like, I think Denzel has his performance is so good because it's got this like warmth to the madness, if you will. Like he just comes on like, yeah, you just keep coming in, dude. Like it's okay. Like, okay, rookie, you're gonna make your mistake, you make your mistake, but he's gonna let you back in. Like his arms are just always open to you. Like you can
Well,
fall down, but I'm
he's
here
like
to
an
pick you back.
abusive
Yeah,
he's like an abusive partner
he's an
essentially.
abusive partner, but you don't recognize that on your first day of meeting him as your partner.
Yeah.
You don't recognize that when you're
well,
in the position
Ethan,
that Jake is in.
yeah, in Ethan Hawke's case, you learn that in a few hours. Like there's a TV show version of this that they made like in back in 2017.
It lasted a
And
season.
well, it lasted a season because Bill Paxton was the Denzel Washington character, and Bill Paxton died. But still, I feel like it would have been cancer regardless. Anyways, but yeah, look, when you do it like over the course of that, it's just like loses so much goddamn tension. And like, I don't know, I feel like casting Bill Paxton, I mean, like, he's a good actor and all, but I feel like it becomes a different story once you have him in the lead
You,
role instead of Denzel.
yeah, yeah, and I think to your point of like Alonzo is manipulating Jake the whole time. Denzel is super manipulative the second we see him on the screen, but it is
Mhm.
through that like warmth, through that it's just a cool factor that he has where you're just like this guy's seen shit. This
Hmm.
guy has like knows the streets and like kind of during that first 40 minutes or so, like it's riding that ethical line, like your toe is gonna cross it proverbially, but it all seems to be what needs to be done for the job. It's when they go back to the drug dealer's house, Roger, and take the $4 million out of the floor
Hmm.
because he needs $1 million cut for himself to
Hmm.
make the deposit for the Russians, where I think Jake is forced to make a decision on on what he wants to do. And I don't think he was going to do anything about it until the he goes to Smiley, the gangster's house to play poker and then gets shoved in a bathtub and Alonzo had ditched him there basically so he could get the money ready to move.
Yeah, and straight up just like sell him out right there. There's one thing that was kind of crazy in the movie is the amount of cameos of people like when we talked about Snoop Dogg earlier, Dr. Dre, and usually when you have like musicians in like prominent roles in movies, sometimes it can just be like awful. But I felt both of them were just really fun in this movie.
Yeah,
Especially
they were both
especially
really fun. Snip
Snoop is
was
definitely Snoop is definitely doing his thing. I mean, he did the same thing as Starsky and Hutch, essentially, same kind of role, like an informant or something.
Yeah, Snoop
uh,
was fun. I mean, also Terry Crews shows up. Ava Mendez, she looked good in
yeah,
this movie.
she was good. So there's a version of this movie when this movie was first considered where it was like Tobey Maguire was seriously considered in the role of Ethan Hawke right here. And he even fucking followed undercover narcotics officers in Los Angeles for like 2 months and gained weight for the role. And then Ethan Hawke ended up being available, and Anton Fuqua was like, "We're gonna go with Ethan Hawke. Sorry, Tobey Maguire. Fuck you." Can you imagine like the difference of that movie? It'd just be too youthful. I feel like he's a rookie, but he's not like a teenage rookie. You know what I mean?
I just think I think it was wise that it didn't happen because what Spider-Man's 2000 or 2000 it's 2001 or 2002 like Training Day, did really well at the box office. It had a $45 million budget, made 104.9 million. It was a huge hit, got nominated for several Oscars, like very well regarded. I feel like it's the epitome of a HBO or TNT movie of the late 2000s. Like it was just going to be on TV on some channel on some point. Like you could sit and find Training Day.
It's definitely a TNT all timer, but it's like
Ye-
when you put in someone other than Ethan Hawke, who I think is just the great like just like uneasy. He's like a rookie, but he's not a young rookie.
yeah,
I don't think I don't
but
need a
my
baby face guy. Yes.
but my point is that like Toby being Spider-Man and having that come out versus something like Training Day, like I think it would have hurt Spider-Man and its movie if audiences the last they saw Toby Maguire was as
Smoking
like smoking
PCP.
PCP. Yeah, like there's an
Well, it's
image thing.
also there's just a different there's a different energy between the two of them. Ethan Hawke has more of like a slightly like chill, laid back
He's
vibe,
he's more
whereas Toby,
he's more stoic and he's more
yeah,
internalized of
Toby
everything.
Maguire has more of like a little awkward vibe where it feels like it would be more of like a big brother, little brother vibe, which this movie has a little bit of that dynamic, but if Toby, that would have been spruced up like crazy. So there's also a version of this is going to be directed by Davis Guggenheim, who I don't know anything he's directed, but it's going to be Matt Damon as Jake and Samuel L. Jackson as Alonzo. Um, which in that aspect, I think Samuel L. Jackson could I think he's done roles like this before.
Yeah,
It's,
this isn't too far out for him. Well, so did you know about the LAPD crash unit that was exposed? So that's the Community Resource Against Street Hoodlums.
well, so apparently this was saying that the corruption was yet to be exposed when it was being written.
When it was being written, but then there was the Rampart scandal. It was a police corruption scandal in LA that primarily took part with the crash division, and the main man was Rafael Perez. He was an LAPD narcotics officer, and that's who Denzel kind of emulated his look by. That's why he grew out the beard there. He wanted so. Antonio Fuqua, the director, said he wanted Denzel's character to be seductive and be part of the machine, not just a random rogue cop. And it definitely feels that way. I think that's the key to Denzel's performance in this.
Mm.
Even when you know morally and ethically like what he's doing is wrong, it feels like this is the way that it has to be done in these communities, in this neck of the woods, in the streets, if you will. If you feel that, right? Like he's so good at selling you on it. And it's a really good way to manipulate somebody like Ethan Hawke's character Jake into molding him into what he wants to be, which is ultimately a dirty cop.
Yeah, in an ideal situation, there's just be another guy. He's probably done this to Dr. Dre's character and the other characters over and over again, where he's brought them in, seduced them immediately, and this is probably the first time where it backfired in his face, and the guy didn't want to immediately join on up. 'Cause, I mean,
He
there's
turned down the money of the $100,000 when they took it. Like everybody was getting a cut. But he wasn't there was a lot of cops there. He wasn't ready to just turn, even if he was ready to turn, he didn't have the evidence to do it. What motivated him was getting a shotgun to his head and only surviving due to what he had done earlier in that day. And then it's that great scene of him walking through the neighborhood that Denzel's baby mama lives at, or his mistress, whatever she's called, and all the guys are looking at him, and they kind of realize oh, this is the rookie, the guy that was here before, but he's just here to see Alonzo. He's got nothing to do with us, and everybody in that neighborhood kind of does not like Alonzo, despite keeping good faces and good appearances with him.
It's definitely leading by fear, and that's why in the end of the movie they all fucking turn on him very quickly.
Yeah, because Alonzo offers all of them cash if they kill Jake. None of them turn, and they literally hold Denzel by gunpoint and say, "We got him. You go ahead." And it's that split decision for Jake that makes him, turn on Alonzo. Not that it's something that he wouldn't have done down the road, but in such a drastic and dramatic fashion to do so. I think it adds great stakes to the third act. And even though Alonzo ultimately gets away, the Russians didn't care that he missed his 24-hour deadline. And even if they had the money, he was done. And that's how the movie ends.
In general, in the way, and I think it wrapped up in a kind of neat way. I kind of wish. I mean, I'm glad that Ethan Hawke didn't do the execution kill or something like that against them.
Yeah,
that would have been then cut to 5 minutes later and care to be arrested and killed.
Well, it also compromises who his character is. Jake's character, he's he shoots him in the butt, but he's not a killer. And yeah, it would have been cliche. It lets you think that Alonzo is going to be able to get away with it, and he ultimately isn't.
Seeing this movie, now I've seen a few David Ayer movies at this point. He also wrote the Fast and the Furious, the first one. You can definitely see the parallels of similar shit of just his total vibe and everything like that. And it's just kind of ridiculous. He goes to the similar detective cop stories. This is definitely in the vein of your Point Break or something like that. Mentor, like turn on the Mentor, and like all of a sudden, and the fact this movie doesn't go, I feel like if this movie was made like 20 years later, would have had more of an action bent in order to stay in theaters or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was nice that it's real there it's not there's not it's just drama.
It's
Like there's
drama, yeah.
it's just
There's
drama. It's high stakes and high intensity drama in
yeah,
like situations where quote unquote action could come at any point, but there's barely any guns fired.
mm,
Barely any action, and I do really appreciate about that. I felt like the direction was pretty well done. I feel like there's nothing flashy about it, but it almost works for this because you want it to feel real. You know, this is one where you really want like naturalistic performances from your actors. And the camera, you know, really gives you a lot of Jake's reactions and how he's responding to the situations that he's being thrown into. Because ultimately, we're getting this told from his perspective. It's not from Alonzo's perspective.
I am. I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I am a big, bright, shining star.
All right, Tommy, who is the star of the show? I think we've covered it.
it's Denzel, obviously. I mean, I don't
It's
know who else you
Denzel's
could say.
show. This is
Uh,
his vehicle. I mean, Ethan Hawke
what's
gives a great performance as well. Like
what's so funny is
it's
that
not that
Ethan Hawke,
it's not that he's overshadowed in my opinion,
yeah.
but sorry, continue.
What's hilarious is that Ethan Hawke is without a doubt the protagonist of this movie. He has more screen time than Denzel Washington, and you know he's the character we follow throughout the fucking movie. And when it came down for Oscar season, Ethan Hawke was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and Denzel was nominated for Best Actor.
But that happens when you
Yeah.
have these kind of larger than life performances and these
Mm.
just fantastic actors.
Going
I
off the
mean,
chain. Yeah.
I think of Goodfellas, like Ray Liotta's the third Bill,
Mm.
and we follow everything about Henry Hill,
Yeah.
but it's De Niro and Pesci that are the two that are, you know, their performances are, and all three of them are remembered, but Pesci won the Academy Award for that performance. Um, I think, yeah, it's Denzel, but I don't want to understate that Ethan Hawke gave a great performance because it was the performance that was needed. It doesn't try to steal any attention away from Alonzo, which is the vehicle, which is what we want to see, you know?
And the fact that, like, you know, obviously Denzel definitely deserved the actor best supporting act, or not best supporting, best actor that year at the Oscars. I mean, he went up against Russell Crowe in Beautiful Mind, Sean Penn, I Am Sam, movie no one's ever talked about in years, Will Smith and Ali, Tom Wilkinson in The Bedroom. I mean, yeah, Denzel, you're gonna go with him all day. Might just list off those other movies. Most of those movies have been forgotten, I feel like.
Yeah, and this one, and I think part of the remembrance of this is its TNT lifestyle, where it lived and breathed for years. It was just a movie that you couldn't escape on cable.
And for David Ayer, this is like still is a calling card. The fact that of you know the Beekeeper movie Timmy found about tonight, when you watch the trailer for it, it still says David Ayer, the writer of Training Day, which is so fucking hilarious to think that like, yeah, we're gonna market Training Day like an intense crime thriller, and this is for the new Jason Statham movie where he's just like a beekeeper and kills people, and just like a shitty Jean-Claude Van Damme type movie. Totally same. That's why we got market.
I can't wait to watch The Beekeeper.
The Beekeeper. That's all you need to know. He keeps bees, dude. He
keeps
fucks up
bees.
people. Yeah.
Are you ready, comedy partner? Waka waka.
All right, Tommy. This almost makes me want to retire the segment. Would Training Day work as a Muppet adaptation? Absolutely not. Like I feel like this is one of the more definitive no's we've ever had.
I
I can't even picture a scene, like unless you want to see Fozzie Bear smoking crack. Like I don't know.
no, I think no, you can make this fucking funny because you know the fucking Chappelle show made this fucking funny. If you did a Muppet version, it would have to be like fucking Ralph the dog is like Denzel or something like that, and he's. I just want to see like Kermit screaming like, "I'm King Kong, motherfucker!" Fozzie would definitely be the one to be taking PCP, and he's like, "Oh, what?
Yeah, Fozzie would be the one on PCP for
Waka,
sure.
waka, waka."
Although it'd be funny if he was Sam the Eagle, and then we saw Sam the Eagle on PCP, because that might be the first time that sentence has ever been structured.
Disney, we're giving you a lot of creative ideas here tonight.
Yeah, we're saving your hides here, Disney, really. Drop that paycheck over. All right, Tommy, review time. Give us your score out of 5.
All right, so this is a fun first time watch. Dug this movie. Denzel just giving an all time performance right here. The story is kind of like something I've seen before, and if it wasn't for Denzel's performance and Ethan Hawke's, this movie would have just been a routine, boring, typical David Ayer bullshit. Just trashing him today. So I think I'm going 3.5 out of 5. So great movie, and Denzel's responsible for at least like half a star.
Yeah, I actually had the same review coming in 3.5 out of 5, and that point 5 is probably due to Denzel's performance alone. But it does show me what an okay, like a pretty good script, and you just put two like dynamic performances next to each other that work in some like in some symbi sim in
Symbi-
s- symbiosis
symbiosis.
symbiosis. There it is. Thank you. Symbiosis with I've been talking for this is about my 12th hour of talking today, so cut me a little slack. They're in symbiosis with each other and they elevate each other throughout the movie, and it's what really carries the movie. It's like a rewatchable for a reason. It's one of those ones that you can kind of pick up at any point, and it's just another great tense scene that just keeps elevating the plot further. I really dug Training Day, and I'm glad we kicked off 2024 with a Denzel movie.
Yeah, great to finally dive deeper into them. So we definitely got to fire up some other ones. I feel like Remember Titans coming sometime down the pipeline.
Oh yeah, I love Remember the Titans. So I think we're gonna finalize what our rest of January is. I know Heat
We
is
know,
out there.
yeah,
Heat, maybe Man on Fire. I don't know. We'll keep it in the thriller category to kick it off. But Tommy, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up today's show?
can't wait to keep some bees when I see the beekeeper. But thank you guys so much for listening. You can follow us on social media at CNETPod. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and occasionally Threads. It took me a minute to remember the social media right there. And then leave us a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Really helps us out, helps us grow the show. And thank you guys so much. Next week we're covering Heat, and yeah.
I'm very excited. Tommy's fell asleep like an hour through it when we were supposed to watch it together.
Oh,
So
dude, yeah. Because we started movie at 11 o'clock and then immediately fall asleep. That's what happened to me. I watched Echo last night. I put it on at 11 o'clock at night. 5 minutes into it, I fall asleep, and Disney Plus told me I watched the whole series when I was asleep last night. Don't watch movies late with me.
man, you're an old man. Well, thank you all so much for listening today. Thanks for kicking off 2024 with us. We'll see you next week.